Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a very special review for you of a JDM model Orient. So JDM, of course, means Japanese domestic market. So this is a watch that is only sold in Japan, but you can get it, from Japanese vendors, and you can kind of get it to anywhere you want in the world as long as that vendor is willing to send it there. So of course, a little bit about Orient. They are Japanese in origin. They're pretty much Seiko and Citizen's kind of lesser known cousin. If you're into watches, you probably know who Orient is. If you're not, honestly, you probably don't. You'll probably know Casio and the G-Shock line, or multiple Citizens and kind of more of their mainstream quartz lines, and then of course Seiko, ever popular kind of across the range of mechanicals and quartz watches, everything from the department store watches to the high-end stuff you'll only find at boutiques or online retailers. So now, just because Orient isn't quite as well known doesn't mean that they don't have as good of a history or as awesome of a lineup. They have some really great bang per buck watches. Even value aside, sometimes they're just really nice watches that really speak to me as far as their aesthetic, especially kind of their sportier line and some of their dressier watches as well. So I'm a big fan of the Orient brand here on the channel. I think they do a lot right. They market themselves right. They put them, as far as pricing goes, I think things are very fair, and they have great looks and a lot of original looks. So I gotta say, I'm a big fan. So now, a little bit about this particular type of watch. It's a compressor style watch, which is they're mainly known for dive watches. This particular model is only 100 meters water resistant, though. It's not really a true diver. Of course, some compromises had to be made to really get this look, and when you get a closer look at the Sapphire, you'll kind of understand. It's similar to the same reasoning why the Oris Diver 65 is only 100 meters water resistant versus 200 or 300 meters water resistant. There's some little compromises you kind of have to make when sealing up the watch and then in the construction to kind of get some of these really retro looks and use a sapphire crystal. So let's go ahead and zoom out and get this guy in hand here. So as you can see, really brilliant blue dial. It's very subdued. It looks very dark from far away, and then that's one of the things I really like about this particular sunburst dial is that it does appear so dark, but the blue effect when it actually catches the light is actually very bright. So extremely high contrast on the blue on here. I'm really liking it. So a little bit about the model. This is the Orient King Master. Is of course a JDM model. It is a reissue of the popular 60s 3-star King Master. The retail price is about $333, and then kind of street price, you can find it for, actually, I'm not sure if that's retail or street. That's kind of just what I found online, since it is a JDM model. I kind of recall that I wasn't really able to find a published retail price, but you can basically find it for under $300, kind of shipped from various different vendors, and I'll post a link where I actually got this one from. So it was very good customer service, and shipping was fantastic. So one thing to note is that this is actually an aftermarket bracelet from Stabe. You guys know I'm a big Stabe Germany mesh fan, and this particular one, I gotta say, they knocked it out of the park. It's actually a tapering bracelet. As you can see here, it has a 1mm taper, and this is beautifully done mesh, really to the highest quality. And this flip lock is just outstandingly engineered. Look at that, with the perlage, really amazing details. And the nice thing is that it does, because of this particular bracelet style, it offers a lot of adjustability. So of course, you know, there is a fair amount of kind of guessing that you have to do and measuring to actually make sure that you ensure you get the right one. You don't want, you know, you either can get the long, normally there's 3 lengths, you know, kind of a short, medium, and long. And for this one, when I was looking, there was actually just 2 length options, kind of, you know, a medium and a long. And I was able to luckily get it dialed in to where it was pretty much the perfect fit for me. So, you know, this is not really a mesh review, but I just wanted to mention that because to me, I think it's something that really plays well off of that bezel. You know, that the way that it's chiseled there, I mean, I think it really ties in, and it also really goes with that beautiful retro aesthetic that they pull off here. So as far as specs wise, the case size is 42 millimeters. It is a 14 millimeter height, and it is of course made out of stainless steel. Now this is a beautiful sapphire crystal here with, of course, this very cool and very retro Cyclops to magnify the date. And as you can see, the day wheel is actually kanji. There is an English, you know, set on there, but you know, the day of the week for me is a little bit easier to remember than the day of the month, so I actually just leave that set in kanji style because I really like the way that it looks. I think it really kind of ties into the JDM appeal of the watch. So, you know, it does have this really great bidirectional rotating inner bezel, so you can set it up to time things, you know, different things. It's a little bit easier to rotate. I think I would almost prefer it to be a little bit harder to rotate, or maybe have a screw down crown, and not necessarily for water safety, more so just to make it a little bit harder to accidentally shift it. You know, I'm get a little bit of ADD sometimes, and or OCD, sorry, and I really kind of want that to just be perfectly lined up if I'm not using it for anything. So, you know, that's probably my one and only complaint about this watch. Everything else is just absolutely fantastic about it. It does have, you know, signed crowns, 2 signed crowns. They have the Orient O on there, if you can see, which is cool. I've actually, all the other Orients I've had have had just the seal, you know, done onto the crowns, but here we actually have the O from Orient on there, which is very nice. The movement inside is the Orient caliber F6922, which is hacking and hand windable, which is really great, and it also has this very cool kind of flipped day of the week function where it's on the other side of the dial, which I think is really cool. Although this is a very busy dial, it's, for me, it's just very stylistic, and it's not there just for the purpose of being there. I feel like it was designed. You know, there was an element of design that went into it, which is really nice. You know, they could have just done the easy thing and kind of had it stacked right next to each other with the day and the date. But I think pushing it out there kind of really balances, especially, you know, when you see at the top, you know, near the 12 o'clock, you have the Orient, you know, crest, of course, and then you got the 3 stars there at 6, and then you have the date at 3. It's nice to have that 9 o'clock day of the week there, because it just really ties everything together. I think it looks absolutely great. So, and of course this was designed a long time ago, right? Because this is a reissue of, you know, a watch from the 60s. So it just has so much personality, and it really, really shines through. Now the case back is nothing to write home about. It's just a solid etched case back. Very standard affair, even probably a little bit more standard than some of the Makos you're going to see, because everything is just polished with some etching there, as you can see. The 10 bar, 400 meters water resistant, which is nice. Nice enough. You know, really not a selling point for the watch, but, you know, I think it's definitely a nice feature. It would have been nice to see a display case back, since this is only 100 meters water resistant. That would have been kind of a cool feature, but you know, I'm not really mad at Orient for having a solid case back on there, because I think it really does tie into the sporty feel of the watch. Now, as far as kind of some more of the aesthetics with the dial in the hands, it does, of course, as we mentioned before, have that really beautiful sunburst blue. You know, the indices are applied, as you can see, and there's basically little tiny lume pips there, lume dots that you can't really see from here. And even, let's say, if I was to hit the lights on there, unfortunately it's a little bit later in the morning where the sun's starting to come up, so it's harder to kind of see that. But you know, there's not a lot of lume on the watch. It's not really what it's for. You know, it's not a true diver, but it's definitely has the chops. I'd still consider it a very nice sports watch that you can splash, take in the pool, you know, rinse off, and really don't have to worry about it. It's not like a dress watch where, you know, you're going to be worried when you're walking through fog. So this is definitely going to be more robust for kind of the more active lifestyles, which is really nice. And so the end links are 22 millimeter, and it actually comes with a really great solid oyster bracelet. It was actually so nice that I couldn't help but actually switch the bracelet out and put it on my Mako USA too. So keep an eye out for that video. You might have already seen it, depending on which one of these videos I release first. I kind of am recording them at the same time. So you know, that's there. I think it looks really great. I didn't switch this bracelet out because, you know, there was anything wrong with it. I switched it out because I really, I had another use for the oyster that it came on, but I just feel like this just feels so at home on mesh. I think it just looks absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, with such a fine mesh here, I mean, that is just, look, it's engineered. It has the 2 clicks there. Just beautifully done, nice and solid. Everything feels great. Of course, this is very polished, so it's going to attract scratches, which is not great. But you know, these pieces are meant to be worn, and if you have more than one watch, chances are you're not going to wear this as much anyway. So you know, it's nice to kind of have some nicer features there for you to enjoy, you know, once in a while. So a little bit about this bracelet. It does taper, kind of as we mentioned briefly in the beginning of the video, and it actually even tapers in thickness too as well, which is, I don't know if the camera's gonna be able to pick it up, but basically that helps it just kind of be that much more refined and just that much more of an amazing, you know, bracelet. I mean, this is true wrist candy. It starts out at pretty much at the closest point to the case. At its thickest point, it's about 4.9 millimeters thick. As it comes down, it tapers down to about a 3.8. And I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but it does make a huge difference in the feel of this on wrist. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. Okay, so as you can see, fits my 7¼ inch wrist absolutely beautifully. I mean, it just looks fantastic. It really wears well, you know, and then now that you have that slight taper there, it feels good. And I mean, I think you can actually see the taper there, although it is a slight taper from 22 millimeters by the case to 20 millimeters at the clasp there. I just think it just looks great, and it really just ties into the nice swoop here of these very short and turned down lugs, which wrap around the wrist really well, just to kind of talk about wearability. You know, this is an extremely feature-rich watch. I mean, it has pretty much all the bells and whistles. You know, it's in-house hacking hand-windable movement. It has sapphire, and you know, beautiful large sapphire at that, as you can see. Solid end links. Of course, if you keep the OEM bracelet on, it has an inner rotating bezel, and it has just that really distinctive retro style, and it is a style of its own. This isn't something where it's copying the Longines Legend Diver. This is a design from back in that day too, when kind of compressor watches were very, very popular. So it really has its own thing going on. It has that nice kind of blend of dressiness, with also that very sporty compressor look. And I gotta say, this watch, although this isn't some very special model, it's still a basic Orient model. This isn't an Orient Star or a Royal Orient. So it's not like there's anything really special about the case finishings. It's really all in that design execution. I feel everything just comes together. I'm really happy that I stumbled upon this model, because this is not one that I really, until I saw it, then I definitely knew that I wanted it. But it wasn't something where this is a watch that's highly recommended, on the forums. This is just one that it's a very niche model, and I think it just works so great and just looks fantastic on wrist there. As you can see, fits really well, but those short lugs really make it wear really well, and I think visually not appear too large. Of course, on wrist, for a wrist shot, things are always going to look a bit bigger. But of course, if it was a full body, and I was standing in front of you, with my wrist down by my side, this would not appear to be large at all. It would look appropriate. So I think it's just a really, really nice piece. Now on the wrist, specifically as far as the way it wears, it feels very substantial but not oversized, and it is assisted by those great short lugs, that are turned down, so it just wraps around the wrist just so nicely. Now, as far as model variants go, there's actually a gray dial model, which is absolutely beautiful, and then a black model with gold accents. So, of course, these are all in steel, and they look great. I mean, the gray to me looks a little bit more modern, and I really, really like that. I mean, I was really close to almost pulling the trigger on the gray as well. The black model with the gold accents has a really fantastic kind of Japanese retro look. I mean, you'll see so many Seiko divers that have that same theme, and a lot of them are limited edition, where they're black, they have gold indices and just gold markings, and that kind of black and gold sport look, to me, I just think is really nice and just has that very cool retro vibe to it. And so I think if you're looking for more of a heritage model, you might be interested in the black and gold. Something more modern, you're probably gonna be looking at the gray dial. And then for this one, I feel like this is kind of a happy medium. The blue can be very retro looking, but also very modern at the same time. So the distortion there you get, I just think it plays really, really nicely. And I'm not normally really a huge fan of the magnifiers there, but I think it ties into the charm of this piece. And then it still has the very nicely framed, if I can catch it, really nicely framed date window. And then on the other side, as far as the day goes, instead of doing a complete frame, they actually did these really nice kind of top and bottom indice kind of little markers there, which I think actually is really nice. So it's not, I mean, because they're obviously not directly symmetrical as far as their spacing goes. So now, instead of it looking kind of like it's one's off when looking at the other, they're two different things. One's a little bit longer because it's supposed to be telling you the day of the week. The other one's just telling you the day of the month, the date, if you will. So I just can't complain. I think the design just bang on. So comparable models, as far as that goes, there aren't really too many to report. I mean, there are a lot of compressor models out there, you know, from large companies, small companies, micro brands, you know, high-end watches. So, but as far as what's in this price range, you know, I think it's a little tough. I mean, if you want to go, I mean, really, if you think about it, something that's in-house, that's, you know, you're thinking IWC will probably be the first in-house model compressor style watch that you're going to see out there with the internal rotating bezel. So I mean, of course there's tons of models, you know, the Longines Legend would probably be the biggest one you would think of, or, you know, the Mito actually has a really cool compressor style watch which has a very nice balance of kind of dress and sportiness to it. But again, you know, those are going to use Swiss ETA movements, so they don't necessarily have that same kind of level of watch geekdom to them. You know, they definitely, of course, Mito and Longines have great histories. But, you know, that's just kind of my thought on it. I think that this, you know, being an original design with an in-house movement, you know, kind of a reissue, everything just comes together. This, to me, it really just has the pedigree that you can just enjoy and really appreciate. I mean, so basically the bottom line is this is a very fine balance between sporty and dressy, you know, with very thoughtfully pointed retro details. You know, and these details can be admired by watch fans while also being appreciated, you know, kind of by the casual onlooker. You know, bottom line, this really just oozes X factor. I mean, this is easily one of my favorite watches to wear. I feel great when I wear it. It just has a story, it has a look to it that really it's just you don't see a lot of, you know. It's not it's something that just feels original, but at the same time it's not original just to be different, you know. It does have it's just well designed, you know. So I'll just leave it there at that. If you like the video, please hit like. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and keep it out for more great content like this. Thanks, guys. Bye.